You're listening to episode 182 of the Small and Supercharged podcast with Reframing. On today's podcast, we are joined by Tracy Cole, who if you don't know her, you're missing out. Tracy is an NLP wizard. I believe that's the correct title. It's not. She'll tell us about that later. One of our mindset masters in Mastermind. And I also trained with Tracy to get my practitioner of NLP certification, and I'm currently doing my Master Practitioner with Tracy. So Tracy's a bit of a star. Thank you very much for joining us here today, Tracy.
You're very welcome. Thank you for asking me.
Well, we'll see how it goes, whether I'll regret that decision. Joking. So I think over the last few years, mindset has become such a big part of so many people's worlds. We see much more about mindset and mental health in there. I know they are different, but a lot more about it has been in the media. We see a lot more on social media. And I think that's a really positive thing, because it can impact every aspect of our life. And I mean, from your point of view, it must be great to see that based on all your knowledge and training as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real buzzword, isn't it, at the moment, mindset, whereas the mental health has still got a few more years probably to get the impact. But it is really nice that people are now addressing their own psychology, their psyche, for all kinds of areas of their life, from the sport, like the equestrians that I work with, or their business. Everything does boil down to the mindset that you've got. And people are now really looking for help and coaching in that, which is lovely, because previously it was sort of, especially for British people, it's stiff upper lip, isn't it, and keep going, and don't mention that perhaps your mind isn't in quite the right place. So it's lovely to see that.
Absolutely. And I think when you mentioned sports psychology then as well, it's interesting that mindsets seem very positively, sports psychology is, but as you say, mental health isn't quite there yet. But it's so great it's being put under a sort of spotlight in the best possible way, so people feel more confident speaking about any aspect of their mind, as you say, that it's not an injury or an issue we can see, but is as you say, can be massively debilitating and really change people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, like you say, that the mental health sort of gives you the impression that these are conditions that people have got that are much more impactful in their lives, although it may not be, because there's not really a fine line of demarcation between mindset and mental health. And I think at times it might be that they get a little bit fuzzy. But yeah, it's great that it is all coming online. It is all coming very much into the public's field of view, and that people really are having to think about their own mental health and keeping themselves healthy, just like you keep a body healthy. I mean, we know what we're meant to do. We're meant to do a bit of exercise and eat the right food, but the mental side of it was always just secondary, wasn't it? And if you were born resilient, you had a nice robust outlook, then that was great. And if you didn't, well, sort of tough, really. You know.
But more and more we've become very aware of, because of things like NLP, that we do have the ability to change that, particularly like from a mindset point of view. Obviously I'm certainly not an expert in very developed mental health things, but from a mindset point of view, we have really got the ability to change our outlook.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fantastic thing, isn't it, that everything is changeable. The mind is really plastic, and you can change the way that you think, the way that you behave. All of it might seem a bit ingrained, especially if it's almost become part of your persona. For some people, that's the way they're thinking, and yet everything is changeable inside the head and inside your mind. So it's lovely to know that, and I think that's something that people perhaps didn't recognize. They thought they were the glass half empty kind of person, and that was that, that was just the way it was. And it's not, is it? It is very much that if you want to change, it's available to you now, and NLP and other techniques give you lots of scope for being able to change, and being able to change more speedily probably than if you were just trying to hammer away on your own.
Definitely. As you said, there's lots of different techniques available out there, lots of different methods. But let's talk about NLP. Can you explain what NLP stands for and a bit about it, what it means, what it does, how it works?
Okay, so it stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming, which is such a mouthful and doesn't really explain at all what it does. So the neuro bit obviously is to do with the mind. Linguistic, because our words are really, really important in our communication with others, communication with ourselves, and even the non-language, the non-verbal communication is really important. And the programming bit is always a strange word for me. Patterning might be a slightly better word, but the programming bit is the changeability of it. So it's a set of techniques that are really quick, very often based on visualization, maybe visualization of what your current situation is and what your desired situation would be. And it's kind of like a mind hack or a bit of a to con your mind that the old situation, which is now the current one, has gone, and it's the new one that's being enforced. It's sending different instructions to your mind. Those pictures that you get in your mind when you think about doing anything, but if you're thinking about doing something that is challenging and you've got that mind's eye view, that mind's eye view is what your mind is using as a set of instructions. So if you see it in Technicolor glory, brilliant, because your mind will really strive and work with you to get that for you. On the other hand, if your mind's eye view is just pitted with all kinds of challenges and man traps and God knows what, then that's what your mind will get for you. And there's no judgment there. The subconscious or the unconscious doesn't say, oh, this is really unhelpful, this is really bad. Just says, okay, there's my instructions. I'll try and make things unfold in such a way that I replicate those pictures as best we can. So NLP is a way of changing the pictures so your mind gets better instructions. And it's lovely, NLP, because it's really quick. And it's not, people think it's something very different to other modalities that are available, and it's not. It's almost like it's not in of itself something different, because it's cherry picked from all kinds of areas. So there's a lot of psychology in there. So it's looked at psychology and just said, oh, quite like this bit, we quite like that bit, and we don't need that bit. Looked at behavioral science and hypnosis, and just picked out what will work and what will work quickly for people. So it's quite nice because it's really efficient, and it's quite a lot of fun as well. It's not like that you've got to pour your heart out and revisit all these old challenges, hurdles, obstacles, whatever. It's nice because people are quite surprised how much fun it is and how you can have a real good giggle with it, even if you are stuck in a rut and life doesn't seem that pleasant. It is quite nice to do.
Hey, absolutely. It's stuff that people can do themselves as well, like the techniques I know that you teach, because actually we need to get onto actually what you do, because you're not an NLP practitioner what is your official title?
I'm a trainer. So I'm a trainer of NLP and a couple of other things as well, like hypnosis. And I train people to be coaches in NLP. So they may be business coaches, or they may be purely mindset coaches or sports coaches. And very often it's an add-on to what they already do. That's my main thing, is to train others. But I still do some coaching. I like it. It's good.
And that's what I was going to say. The great thing as well about the NLP techniques is there's lots of different ones, and therefore they have the ability to work across a variety of different issues. I know you do quite a lot of work with riders, so confidence is a really big thing. And with a business point of view, imposter syndrome, overwhelm, these subjects that we all we do hear a lot about. But the great thing is that the way that NLP works, it can work for all different sorts of situations, can't it?
Yeah, and I suppose really we are complex but simple creatures, aren't we? So, if you lack confidence in one area, let's say in business, it's pretty much the same as lacking confidence in another area, like your riding. So it isn't that you have a million and one different techniques. The way the confidence or the lack of confidence is being generated, created in your mind, it's going to be pretty much the same. So, to a certain extent, it means that the techniques can cross over to different areas of your life. And like you say, because they're so easy and quick, once somebody's had a session of NLP, they can very much practice it for themselves. And I find a lot of people, they might have come to me through riding and equestrianism, and then they'll say to me, well, could I use that for a work situation? I've got to give a presentation. I'm like, oh yeah, great, go ahead. And that's what's nice about it as well, that you can kind of like just wipe the slate clean in all areas of your life.
I'm obviously a big fan anyway, and I think as well, I'm sure you have this with your other practitioners you've changed, but they have the kind of techniques that they like the most. So there's two I really like. I don't think you're going to be surprised by either of these. One is the reframing one, and this is one I use a lot, and it's something that I never used to do. And then I know I started doing it before I actually started the training, and I thought, oh, that's what it is, which is when if something really challenging happens, rather than thinking, oh, this is the worst thing ever, this is a disaster, like think about, okay, what can it teach me? And I find that so useful because it actually allows you to kind of stride on and not necessarily worry about the outcome of a project.
Yeah.
If you see it as learning.
Yeah.
And I find that really, really useful. I know I talk about it quite a lot on my social media, but rather because it just picks you up and you learn, and it's a positive experience rather than being down in the dumps for ages.
Yeah.
And is that how you would do a normal reframe, or have I just added my own little twist to that?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's pretty expandable, isn't it? A reframe technically is looking at the good out of a situation or a good out of a characteristic that could be construed as a negative, but you're putting the spin on it. I suppose spin is the word that people are more used to hearing. Reframing has gone all over social media and everybody reframes, and I'm not sure they are reframing, but
no, not always.
But it is putting the positive spin on, and like you say, exactly, you might be in a right quagmire, but if you can put some kind of learning experience to it and say, okay, well, the thing that I've learned is never to do that again, or never to go down that rabbit hole. And if that's all you learn, you've still gone through that experience and you've still expanded your thinking. So yeah, it is absolutely that's a great reframe to think about what you're learning. And to avoid the word failure is brilliant, because, well, NLP, one of the big things about NLP is there's no failure, there's only learning. And that sounds sort of, a bit glib, really, but there's no failure, there's only learning. Yeah. It's dead easy to say, and when you're in a happy mood, oh, it sounds brilliant. And when you're not, it's challenging. But if you live by that, if you really can have a go, it really, really helps.
No,
because it just opens your mind, doesn't it? It's like, imagine you cannot fail ever. It's like, oh wow, what do you mean I can't fail?
Yeah.
So then the world is your oyster.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's a really good one. And the other one that I really like, and I have brilliantly completely forgotten the name of it, it's like a pattern interrupt, I think. It's when your mind goes off down a rabbit hole and it's getting more and more negative. You say delete, don't you? Or stop out loud.
Yeah.
Is so simple yet so effective to like snap you out of a negative but it sort of self-perpetuates, doesn't it, when you get into one of those thought patterns, and saying stop, or as you say, delete, which I prefer because it's more of a mouthful, like you've got to concentrate on saying it 3 times. So good. And I think that's why I wanted to mention those two, because when we talk about techniques and theories and stuff, it can sound like really overwhelming, like we've got to remember every single step of all these patterns, and if you do it wrong, it doesn't work. It can just be telling yourself to stop when you're on a negative path, or looking at a situation and going, what have I learned? It doesn't have to be, I know you do a lot more, there's a lot of different techniques depending on the situation, but it can be as simple as those two, can't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's what's nice about it. That's the vast majority of techniques can be done by the person who's had the session, and they just continue with it and they sort of top themselves up. But yeah, the simple ones are really great. Just saying stop. I mean, because there's so much power in that word stop. And I always say to people, you know, if you go to a supermarket and you say stop, the aisles of people just freeze. You know, it really does tap into our psyche, that word. And some of the other ones as well really do. But yeah, I love the simple ones. I mean, why complicate things? If that works for you, if you're getting nervous or you're getting into something that's really negative, and if you can stop yourself early enough by saying one of these words, and the word doesn't matter, it's just something to sort of jolt you, isn't it, to go, oh, hang on, reset. And then if you can do that and you can stop yourself early enough and you do it frequently enough, it becomes part of your new pattern.
Yeah.
And you sometimes find yourself going into that same scenario, and you hear these words pop up inside your head without you having said them. So you hear the delete, or the stop, and you're like, oh yeah. Now my mind's got it. My mind's now telling me to stop. So yeah, it's great.
And how did you get into it? Because on LinkedIn, you are Dr. Tracy Cole, and I know you really are Dr. Tracy Cole, but not in the medical way. But
No.
How did you get into NLP? Because you didn't start off anywhere near this, did you?
No, miles and miles away. So the doctor bit is, I've got a PhD in biochemistry. So nothing.
Science. I mean, it's
yeah, but it's not really psychological. I did no psychology training or anything like that. So I started off in life as a research biochemist. I did some work in universities and I lectured a bit in biochemistry. But that didn't take me to where I am now. What took me here was I was an equestrian and I did very low level show jumping, you know, nothing amazing or anything like that. And I, in spite of it being very low level, had such nerves that was ridiculous. I mean, you know, it caused me to not be able to ride anywhere near like I did at home. And it was so frustrating because there was no reason for it, because there was no logic. That's what I couldn't understand. And I suppose that is the scientist in me, that there was no logic. It's like, it doesn't matter if you come last, it doesn't matter if you fall off, none of it matters, because this isn't your job. This is a bit of a hobby. This is meant to be enjoyable. And I tried a few different things, like breathing exercises, and I bought a few books, and I couldn't quite get anything to work. Everything worked beautifully when I'm sitting at home in front of the telly.
Yeah.
I was really, really fantastic on those show jumping courses in my head.
Calm, cool as a cucumber, at least 2 meters tall.
It was like puissance.
Obviously, yeah, too right.
And then it would come to the actual competition and then just fall apart again. I mean, I would do it, but it was such a horrible experience. And I came across, when I was Googling, I came across NLP all the time. Every time I Googled rider confidence, rider nerves, how to get more confident, then that's what I came across. And I kind of looked up NLP and I didn't like it. When I looked up what it was, it just sounded a bit kind of glitzy, easy, too easy. And I avoided it. And I avoided it until I read Pippa Funnell's autobiography. And in it, she talks about her own struggle with nerves, and she talks about the fact that she overcame them with an NLP practitioner. And so I thought, oh my goodness, maybe this is something to look into. So I didn't know you could go for coaching if you were just an ordinary rider like I was. You know, I didn't need a sports psychologist as such. So I went and did a training in NLP. And I'll be perfectly truthful, first day I was the skeptic of the class. I mean, I wasn't impolite or anything, but I was sitting there thinking, this is really good and I really like it, but I can't see it working for me. And I don't know then if it'd work for a large number of people. And as I went through the course and we practiced these techniques on one another, I thought, right, I'm going to do all my riding fears and just see if it helps. And if it helps, then that'll be fabulous. And if it doesn't, then I've learned loads, and I'll just have to try something else. And of course, I tell you what I did oxers, because they were something that I really didn't like. Give me an upright that was twice the height, but give me an oxer that was like 6 inches off the ground. That was really, really terrifying. So I remember one evening I went home after the training and I put up a course of oxers, only oxers. And I thought, right, this will do it. So this is the test. And I went around this little course and just jumped them and didn't really think about it. So then as I say, I am a skeptic. I thought, well, maybe they're not high enough or wide enough. So I changed them all around. I mean, this is exhausting with all these poles and wings. I mean,
Yes, that's impressive.
Isn't it? It's 2 jumps per jump, really. It's 4 wings that you're carting around. And then I thought, oh, okay, so that seems all right. But I bet it's only because I've done the training today. You know, it's like fresh in my mind, but it's going to wane over time. So more or less every day that week, my poor horse, we did the oxer course, trying to get my nerves back, which I mean, I wouldn't ever expect or tell somebody else
This
to do.
isn't the advised way of doing this, for the record. This is definitely not the advisable way, but yeah, I can see why you were doing it.
But yeah, there's just something in me. I do need that evidence. And so yeah, and I couldn't get those nerves back. And then I did various things for competition nerves, and I didn't really feel nervous anymore. I just felt like, oh, let's just get it over and done with. Come on, let's just go, you know.
Oh, wow.
And it was really strange. And I've had clients say the same thing. You're almost looking for the nerves and you're waiting for them. You're thinking, yes, oh, give me 30 seconds and they'll be here. Okay, well, they're not here yet, but I need to just start the course and then they'll kick in, or I need to do this and then they'll start. And it's really bizarre, really odd when you don't feel them in the same way. Really, really odd. But that little course, it was quite long and it was for practitioner. That was what made me think that I could do this professionally, maybe just part-time. But I thought there's so many people like me for various reasons, whether it's hacking or cantering or even just jumping or anything at all. I thought, and they're living, they're gritting their teeth, they're feeling the fear, facing the fear, all these kind of things, just to get them to ride in some way that they want to do, convincing themselves that the best bit of the ride is when you get off.
Yeah,
that huge amount of relief. I survived it again. And then I thought, you know, there must be something in this that I could start to do. And I started to do it part-time. And then I went less and less time at work and more time on the NLP. So that's how I started. That's quite a long answer to your question.
No, it's good. The first kind of dipping your toe into it was training to become a practitioner.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You did get stuck right in, don't you?
And as I say, part of that was ignorance, because I didn't realize that everyday riders could go and have a coaching session. So I didn't know about that. I thought, oh, you just go and learn NLP for yourself. And then during the course, I realized, oh gosh, I'd be able to have people pay me. And that was quite enlightening. I was like, oh gosh, what have I signed up for? Oh wow. So I did pretty much after the course. I thought, you know what, I am going to do this evenings and weekends. And that was how I set up a business. But it wasn't meant to be necessarily that it became my whole business, or that I left my employment. That initially wasn't it. It just sort of gathered pace as I went along.
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing. I mean, I think most riders will have had incidences a bit like that. And I used to do in a previous life, I was a riding instructor, and I went through the BHS system. And at home, I wouldn't say I was brave at jumping. I was never brave, but I was very brave on some horses, not on others. But everything that on the yard where I used to work, I would jump. I'm thinking if that's true, but I think it is, because I knew them. Like, you know what they're going to do, how they jump. And we would jump quite big things. We'd go off cross country schooling, and it was stage 3 then. They're like decent jumps. I thought they were. You used to have to do, I think it's something like a 3-foot something cross country course on a horse you in theory didn't really know. And the higher you went at the stages, the more potentially challenging the horses could be. So at home, I'd ride up to intermediate event horses.
Yeah.
Around courses, and it was fine. There'd be a few, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not amazing at jumping. There'd be a few things, but it wouldn't really bother me. I'd be like, oh, we're jumping. I would get a bit nervous, but nothing ridiculous. I'd go to an exam centre, and I was like drinking Rescue Remedy and trying not to be sick. And the first time I even did I failed my first stage 1 riding, which is just so embarrassing, because it's quite, again, I was working with up to intermediate event horses, doing interval training, hacking, jumping, schooling. And we went off to this place, and I sat on this horse, and I just could, like, none of me would work. And the horse went horribly, and it was just, I mean, I should have failed, for the record. I just rode like an absolute, I just couldn't believe how badly I'd ridden. But at home the next day, back to normal again. And it became a real thing that I was being really stunted by, not actually by my ability, but because my mind was going, we are going to die today. We are going to die. We don't know that horse. Whereas actually, in truth, I would ride horses I didn't know particularly well, that they could come in for schooling. Wouldn't bother me. But things like that, I mean, obviously I do different things now, but it can be really limiting on your enjoyment of it. Because it was definitely, when I went for these, when I did go for exams, it was just like, let's just get through this, try not to be sick on anyone, let's just get through it so we can go home. Like, regardless of the outcome, we just need to get through it. And I remember when I did my stage 2, they had this enormous course of show jump set up, and I walked around the corner into the arena, and they were genuinely massive. And I was thinking, this is not good. This is not good. It was set up for a completely different thing. Not what we were doing. They started dropping them down. I'm like, oh, okay, that's not as awful. But I can remember, I can visualize it in my head now, walking around the corner going, oh God, I'm going to die today. But so limiting. I would get so stressed about it, to the point that it just took any enjoyment away from actually any riding or any work towards that for so long. And really, there wasn't much need. I just needed to go and see somebody to help. But it's a really interesting one, especially when it's not your ability that's actually the thing holding you back. It's incredibly frustrating, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, the number of times that I've been in a competition and maybe waiting at the gate to go in, and there might be one other person behind me, and the person has turned to me, or I've turned to them, and we've kind of looked at one another, and we've got this knowing look. What am I doing here? I could be doing so many other things that are quite nice on my weekend afternoon. I don't need to be doing this. But I'm going to put myself through it. And I don't know why I'm putting myself through it, but when I jumped that last jump, then I'm going to breathe a huge sigh of relief. It's over. And it's such a shame, isn't it, that it's something, it's a bizarre thing, isn't it, that it's something that you want to do so much,
yeah,
and yet it stresses the life out of you.
yeah.
We are strange creatures to want to do that, to put ourselves through that. And like you say, it doesn't have to be that way at all. No. It can be so much easier and more enjoyable.
So from doing your practitioner training, what then made you think, actually, I'm going to go, you would do your master practitioner training next, wouldn't you? What made you take that step up?
So it was about a year later, I think, when I did my master prac, and I decided within that year that I quite liked this coaching side of thing and helping other riders. And I was very, very much on the rider side of things, although I had a few clients who were non-equestrian. And I just thought doing a master prac would increase my skill set and the types of people that I could see. So I could deal with deeper problems and this problem, that problem, nothing would faze me, I thought, if I had that under my belt. And I think that's true. I think as well, master prac is one of those things that's quite challenging. In the nicest possible way. It makes you rethink your own thinking a lot. It makes you think about your own limitations, your own limiting beliefs and the blocks that you've got, because it comes a point where you're sort of saying to yourself, I can't talk the talk if I don't walk the walk. You start to not be so genuine. You're sitting there telling people to be confident, but maybe you're not as confident as you could be. And so part of doing master prac as well was just to iron out any of the creases that I had in my own mindset. So yeah, I love master prac. That was brilliant to do.
And then you went to another level, because why not, I guess. What made you go from that to a trainer? Because that, I know, obviously I'm doing master prac with you now, and it's great because we have our Zoom sessions. I know you pre-COVID used to teach in like a few days course. It's quite a longer course, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But in the UK, so you just travel along to your venue, or you turn on your computer and you can, do the training. But being a trainer is a whole different ball game, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I went to do trainers training because I like teaching. I really like teaching people. And to be able to teach people, you've got to have your trainer's certificate. So yeah, I had to go off. You need to really immerse yourself in NLP for 3 weeks or so to do your trainer's training. It works better like that you are living, breathing, doing NLP for 3 weeks. It's quite challenging, trainers training. You've got to get everything precise, which is good, because you don't want trainers being churned out that are a bit sloppy and don't perhaps know quite what they're doing, or couldn't quite give you some advice on a certain client. But it really keeps you on your toes. You've got to do presentations in a very certain manner. So for instance, you have to keep your vision peripheral vision. Yeah. If you drop out of peripheral vision, that's a no-no. You will get black marks for that. So if at any time, you know, just as you're giving a presentation, maybe you're not quite sure what the next paragraph would be, the next slide or whatever, and you've just forgotten for a few moments and your mind's just going, oh my God, what do I say after this? What do I say after this? Then you will come out of peripheral vision, because that's how we get our information. We start to focus on something. So you focus your eyes as well. And if you do that at trainer's training, oh, that's a big And there's other things as well. You know, at certain times, you're not allowed to use your hands or any hand gestures.
I would find that so hard.
So that's another black mark if you start using hand gestures in the wrong way. So they take your hands away for, I can't remember now, it might be 10 days, 2 weeks. You've got to give presentations and demonstrations without using your hands. And then they teach you how you're supposed to give gestures.
My arms are always going. Oh my goodness.
It is. And the format of the talk has to be spot on. Obviously it has to be, correct. It has to be all the right details, and it has to, you can't just be a bit waffly. You've got to know your stuff, but you have to put it into a certain format in terms of presentation. So it's very different. Trainers training, it is teaching you to be able to teach others. But I mean, it's one of those that you do and you come out of it and it's just fabulous. You feel great, but it's quite a stretch. About 80 people started on our course and 56 finished it.
And this was over in?
This is in Las Vegas.
Yeah, so it's not local at all. And so these people from all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, I would say 99% of people had flown in.
Wow.
So I couldn't quite understand why people would drop out.
No.
Not when you've made that much effort to get the flights, get the accommodation, go to all the talks and
pay for the training. There's a lot of
the training, yeah. That you wouldn't just keep going. I think, some people, I think it was almost like they felt as though it was, like a boot camp where they break you and then they make you.
Right, so, yeah.
I didn't quite feel it was as bad as that. I could weather it, but you've got to be able to take criticism. You've got to be able to take it, because they will criticize lots of stuff about your presentations, about your demonstrations, and then you've got your assessment and 4-day assessment.
Oh my goodness.
Quite a lot of people, it's a shame, quite a lot of people in our cohort bowed out before the assessment, so they did all the training and then not the assessment.
Oh wow.
So it's a shame.
But again, it's something that really puts you above above a lot of people who are practitioners or master pracs in the UK, because it is becoming more and more common in the nicest possible way for people to have this a practitioner level, whether it's for their own use. So I know that I've done it because I wanted it to assist me in the business coaching I do, and obviously the master prac will do the same. But a lot of people, it's really down to you, because you do quite a lot of training. But as you said, these are often people who are riding instructors or business coaches, or have got other businesses where being able to help improve someone's confidence to do different things when they're working together could be valuable. Have you noticed over the last, have you noticed probably since COVID, if there's been an increase in people wanting to do more practitioner training, whether that's as a pivot or because they want to have that kind of toolkit themselves? Or when did you notice that kind of increase in interest? I know that you have got quite a few. You've got one training going at the moment for practitioner.
Yeah.
And these are people from all over the world that come to Zoom. And if you are thinking, contact Tracy, she's very, very good. Not just because she's here. So yeah, I'll let you answer the question now rather than just rambling.
Yeah, you're right. Lockdown did masses for mindset, and I think it was a make or break for some people. But for me, it was really good. That sounds terrible, but it was, because all of a sudden the online world just really opened up, didn't it? The floodgates. Because prior to lockdown, I did trainings local to me, so that's Leek, Staffordshire, and lots of people, bless their hearts, did come from all corners of the UK, from Cornwall to Scotland, and also people came from abroad as well. But it is expensive, and you've got to leave your kids, you've got to leave your horses and dogs and husbands and wives and all the rest of it. So you've got to then have a week away from normal life. So it really put the cost up for people. So when you consider that you can do it on Zoom, you can be anywhere in the world, and it's easy to get into. You log on to Zoom, off you go. It's really had such a massive impact on what I do, because maybe there were people, again, I'm not sure whether there were people who were thinking, oh, I'd love to do practitioner, but I don't want to take a week out of my life, or I don't want to go and stay somewhere, or it makes it so expensive, who's going to look after the horses, or they were already thinking that way, but maybe lockdown, they thought, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I had some tools to help me with my own mindset, and then maybe even help others. So I think it was a bit two-pronged, really, a bit of a win-win for people like me, because all of a sudden, I suppose a lot of people who were on furlough were starting to really evaluate their jobs, and really evaluate, is it worth it? You know, this daily commute, do I really need to do that? And then they've got time on their hands as well to think about their own mindset, put in this really odd position that we were all in during lockdown, where everyone sort of like took it as a holiday for 2 weeks, and then it wasn't a holiday. So I think it has definitely sparked a massive interest in mindset, and lots of people have seen it as a great add-on to their own business. Like you say, you may not want to be a pure NLP practitioner. You know, you may want to use it in an applied sense for your business, for your riding students, or whatever you want to do. It's very amenable to helping with mindset in any area.
No, definitely. I mean, I know with the mastermind group, we have a rotation of Tracy Cole, Jane Pike and Jane Brindley, who do the mindset sessions each month, and they're so well attended, and it's so interesting to hear people's experiences that they're sharing, and just those tips and tricks that you share, that we know people are like, oh my God, that's me. And it's just great to be able to kind of have that conversation and get it a bit more out in the open, so people know they're not alone, but also have those tips and tricks to help. And it's just become a lot more mainstream in the best possible way now. And I do think that I've really noticed that probably at not quite the very start of lockdown, but definitely ramping up as things got more prolonged and people were having to change and pivot, and people had additional stresses from homeschooling to if they couldn't go physically out to work, or if they didn't know they're going to have jobs, or there's just a lot of stuff going on, wasn't there?
Yeah, really difficult situation, but really was probably a watershed moment for most people in terms of how they thought about their own mental health, their own mindset, and maybe they were starting to think about other people, you know, because they were messaging people or they were on Zoom calls, and they were realizing that their friends and family weren't doing too well either. So it really put the spotlight on mental health, didn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Now, moving forward to kind of, obviously this is November, we're moving forward to December and Christmas and all the stuff that's going on. Obviously for small businesses, it's an incredibly busy time, but also for people that don't have small businesses, it's a crazy busy time with all the presents and the family-based juggling and school plays and random days. Actually, don't get me started on all that. Tracy has to put up with this anyway. There's so much going on, and it's really easy to become very overwhelmed. I'm going to put you on the spot here because you did a really good presentation on overwhelm in Mastermind, and I wonder if you just had a couple of tips you could share. If someone's listening to this, starting to get all the kind of feels about so much to do, not enough time, so much pressure. Are there any tips you can draw from your NLP-ness that people could apply that would you think might help?
So I think the first thing is people get into overwhelm because they are used to thinking about things in a certain level of detail, and then that's fine if you've got 1 or 2 or 3 tasks, or maybe a few more, that, like you say, with Christmas and New Year and all the run up and winter's coming and everything else, you haven't got that handful of things, you've got 10 handfuls. So it's because we're trying to deal with those myriad of things with the same detail as we would if we've only got a handful. And you just can't. You physically cannot do that. So if you can think of, or let's say you absolutely brain dump onto a piece of paper, probably a big piece of paper for some people.
Big piece, A3.
At least everything that needs doing, everything in life and business that needs doing, and just randomly write it, not in any kind of order or structure, and then pick out 3 of them and just think about the main 3, just for today, just the main 3, and think about how you can schedule those in as you would appointments, for a business diary or something like that, and just schedule those in, and then maybe take another 3 and just schedule those in, and start thinking as your list gets a bit shorter, which ones can you delegate and start asking people to help you with, and which ones can you delete till the new year, which ones are just, they would be lovely if you could get round to it, but it's not too bad if you don't. And if you could do that, if you go through your list and try and put in a schedule, at least then you've got a plan to work to, rather than just seeing everything all at once, rather than, okay, I'm going to just put these 3 things into some kind of schedule. And obviously some things are going to take a day or 2. It's not saying put 3 things on one day, but just realistically time them out. And make sure you do delegate as well. There's always somebody that can help you with something along the way. So I think that's quite nice, because it's practical, because you're writing stuff down. Because I think also in overwhelm, you forget things. They're sort of in your head. You've got about 10 things in your head. You've got 10 things in a diary. You've got 10 things written on a scrap of paper. If you get them all in one place as well, sometimes that's like, oh, now I haven't got the pressure to remember that. I haven't got the pressure that if I forget it, this is going to be awful. And I really, really need to do that. And I've promised the person that I'll do it, but I probably will forget it. And there's some release in even just doing that.
Oh, it's a horrible feeling when you're so worried about forgetting all the things in your head that you almost can't settle, rest, because your brain's going, no, don't forget that, and that, and do not forget that. And you're like, oh my God, I'm going to forget something. Which one's it going to be? It's really, it adds to it all again, doesn't it?
Yeah. So you've got your kind of like a master sheet, and as we say, it could be A2, could be A1, but
maybe A1. Yeah, let's get a flip chart on the go. Flip chart and a fine pen. That's what we need. And that's brilliant advice. I like that. So people, if you're listening now and you're feeling all the overwhelm, get yourself a huge piece of paper, coloured pens. I like stationery. Get all the colours.
Yeah, lots of Sharpies involved.
Yes. Enjoy yourself. Get yourself a cuppa and some biscuits and crack on. So what is going on in the world of Tracy Cole NLP moving forward? Because you do very regular trainings. You've got a new thing that I'm hoping you're going to talk about, otherwise I'll have to talk about it. Tell us what we can expect from you moving forward into the new year.
Okay, so in the new year, in January, I start training again. My trainings currently are, if you want the group training, they start on Mondays. They're Monday afternoons, UK time. And the NLP section runs for 8 weeks. So we do 8 Monday afternoons. And then we continue on. So people can, if they want, finish there and then, be certified as an NLP practitioner. But they can also carry on and get their practitioner level in timeline therapy, which is all about stress, depression, anxiety, emotional problems, but also looking to the future as well. So clearing up the past and looking a bit more to the future. They can do NLP coaching and modern hypnosis. So that will kick off in January with a new cohort of people. So that's really exciting. I love that. And then the thing that you were trying to get me to talk about is the business mindset course, which is called The Business of Mindset.
Good title, that's a good title.
Oh, I don't know who told me about that one.
I can't think, but they must be a genius.
I would think so. Thank you. Royalties will be in the post. So that is an online course. So you can do it one of two ways. You can do it with support, so you can have Zoom sessions with me, or you can do it entirely on your own, which sounds terrible now because I've just made this big thing about support, but lots of people will be able to do it completely on their own. It's just if you need a bit of added extra.
But also the great thing with all the stuff that you do, and I work with Tracy and Tracy works with me, so we're all good, like I know this, is that if you have someone that did the business course and got into one of the modules and just messaged you and went, I don't understand what's going on, you're not going to go, you're on your own. That's not how you operate anyway, is it? So it's, although they're on their own, it's self-study and self-paced. They're not literally like, go and sit in the corner, we don't want to know you.
No. Of course, you've always got my support. And if you do say, I just didn't get what you were on about, or I'm not sure, am I doing this right? Then that's perfect. Yeah, you've got all that support. So that'll start in January. So there's 8 modules. And each module goes through a challenge that business people, small business owners have, and such as the burnout and the imposter syndrome, the limiting beliefs. Can I do this? Am I good enough? How people think about money even, and their charging. So just trying to get that mindset out of the way, thinking about what you're projecting as a business owner, which is really subtle, because we imagine that what we're projecting is what comes out of our mouths, what we write on social media, what's on our website. But there's something that's just that extra little essence of us that's coming across, that we're just kind of transmitting, broadcasting, not quite sure of the right words, but you know, that little something that somebody will pick up on and say, I really like what you're doing. I really like, because I feel that you'll be a great coach or a great business for me to do work with or buy products from. And it's addressing that side of the business mindset as well, which is something that, you know, is sometimes neglected, because if you're frantically working all the time, that's another thing we talk about, people who work and work and work and work. But if you are like that, that comes across in your posts. You don't realize it. You read it back, it makes sense. You're not talking about hard work and overly busyness or anything like that. But it somehow it does, doesn't it? Between the lines, there's something a bit about it. And it just might put somebody off because they think, oh, this person's on the edge of their nerves. So we talk about a lot to do with that to make sure that you are projecting exactly what you want to project, so that you get the right clients, you get the right customers.
I know that you've been running a trial, haven't you? And the feedback has been, I mean, amazing.
Oh yeah, it has actually. It's really blown me away, that the success that people have been having, because the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? It's very nice to have this lovely mindset and potter along, but that's not what the ladies who are trying it are wanting to do. They want to move forwards and they want to see changes. So they've been fantastic testers, because, you know, I don't want them to just feel great. I want them to see the results, and that's what's happening. They're seeing results quite rapidly. They're changing the way that they approach things as well. So, for instance, one lady really has never had to sell anything as such, and sales is a bit icky. You know, putting yourself out there, putting prices on things, and then wondering, oh, am I a bit expensive compared to somebody else, or maybe I'm not charging enough. And it's a vulnerability, isn't it, that we all feel. And she just thought, I think she sort of like thought of herself in almost like an avatar or something like that, and just thought, do you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it, and it doesn't matter what happens. I'm just going to play with it. And that's exactly the right way to take it, isn't it? Let's play.
Yeah.
And she just had such amazing results from this. So first of all, she practiced. I have to say this, she practiced with her husband's business or a partner's business, because she didn't do the horsey stuff. She went and helped him out with his guitar business. And I suppose it was a little bit easier for her to sell that because it wasn't her business. What did she care? And it was through that, though, that she got these amazing results for him. She got all kinds of people selling, sold all kinds of guitars and guitar parts to all kinds of people, some of them more famous than others, that she was then able to apply it in her own business. She thought, well, if I can do it like that, why can't I do it for myself?
Brilliant. And so the course starts in January. It's in the practitioner course. You've already got people booked on that. And you have a maximum of, I want to say 6.
Yeah, usually it's 6. This time I squeezed in a 7th person, but it's a nice number 6 because you get to know people, but it's not too big. You know, one of these massive Zoom meetings where you can just see massive little thumbnails of people.
Yeah.
I like to keep it a little bit small so that everyone feels like they can unmute themselves at any time, ask loads of questions. But also, I think a little byproduct of it is that you get to know the people. I get to know them, they get to know me, and they get to know each other as well.
Which is lovely.
And it's great that, you know, collaborations have come from it, and people have made friends. And although it's all in the virtual world, it's been super. So that there are still a few spaces on there, by the way. It's not completely sold out.
Or ping Tracy a message if you're interested. And then the business course, that's a self-study or a guided one, will be launching also in January.
Yeah.
Very exciting. Tell us all the places where people can find out more about you, stalk you online, reach out to you, but don't just send her rubbish via LinkedIn. She's not into that. Tell us all the places.
So on Instagram and Facebook, I am, and think LinkedIn as well, I am at Tracy Cole NLP. LinkedIn's always funny with its little handles, isn't it? And I think I'm...
Are you Dr. Tracy Cole on?
Yeah.
I'm sure if people have a search for that.
I think that they could find me easily. Yeah.
And your website is?
www.tracycolenlp.com.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me and, well, us indeed, the wider community today. It's been fab to chat to you.
Thank you. It was lots of fun. Take care.